Well, hello there, everyone. We have a great turnout for a hacker's guide to protecting yourself. This ShareFile webinar is going to be a good, fun one on a Halloween day. James Hilliard here, moderator for the event. Not going to try and scare you too much, just by, though, the topic and the nature of what we're going to be talking about. We might spook you just a little bit, especially if cybersecurity is something that you have to focus on a day-to-day basis. Alexander, welcome to you, sir. Thanks for taking time to join us. We got several Pauls on the line. Kim, welcome to both Kim's on the line, Kevin and Chris and many others out there as well. James Hilliard here, moderator for the event. Again, my thanks to the ShareFile team for sponsoring today's presentation and inviting Brian Seeley on board. He's the author of Cyber Fraud, The Web of Lies, and I'll share a little bit more about Brian's backstory here in just a moment. But first, Brian, welcome to you, sir. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me. And yeah, welcome to everybody who's attending.
And second, Brian and I did talk yesterday, and one of the things that I said to Brian that I wanted to do is I said, hey, so, Brian, I put together, I think I told you earlier today, 10. It's actually 14 kind of words and phrases that I've put together. Folks, Brian does not know what these are.
Oh, good. I'm scared now.
You should be. I'm going to say the word or phrase, and then Brian's just going to give us truly, honestly, authentically the first thing that comes to mind. And I think this is going to set us up for then some ideas that he can clarify as he goes through his presentation for us. But that's what we're going to do. So again, welcome to all of you. Let's start off here. 14. I'll go through them pretty quickly, Brian. Again, you just give me best first thought, top of mind. I say cybersecurity. You say
buzzword.
Malicious hackers.
Most hackers.
Average online user.
Idiot.
Social media.
Place for idiots to hang out.
Secret Service. Don't say the previous words.
Old friends.
Old friends for Secret Service. Google.
The last company on earth that will ever hire. If you're backing up your stuff, it shouldn't matter.
Antivirus.
Worthless.
Intrusion prevention.
Getting better.
White hat hackers.
Stupid term.
True threat protection.
Unavailable.
I'm letting that one sink in for a moment. Chief Information Security Officer.
Master's degree in khakis.
Equifax.
Why are they still in business?
Silver bullet.
Werewolf.
Good. A little Halloween reference there. So, folks, I hope you remember some of those. I jotted down some of the responses there. The reason I did that is, again, you see on the screen here, a hacker's perspective. Brian is a hacker. He's a world-famous cybersecurity expert. He's an ethical hacker. He did write the book, as I mentioned, Cyber Fraud, The Web of Lies, former U.S. Marine. He's also got some gravitas. He's kind of bold because Brian, right in front of kind of showed them a hack using Google Maps early in 2014. Got him several hours of one-on-one time with said Secret Service agents. We're going to hear about some of that story. He found an exploit in LinkedIn.com, helped the company resolve that issue. His current company, he owns a security company. He also has a blog called SeelySecurity.com, Chief Information Security Officer at J4 Capital. He has a lot of information to share with us today. Again, you might get a little bit scared, but the idea is to try and give you a current perspective of kind of what hacking looks like, what's going on, what we might be able to do to protect ourselves, the things we can do, tech we can use, things like that. So that's what we've got planned for today. Questions, comments, anything you have to share that you want to share, you can. You heard Brian give some opinions as we went through that list. If there's something you agree with, share. If you disagree with, you want to take a different stand, you want to have a conversation, a friendly conversation about some of the ideas, feel free to use the Q&A in our tool to share those, and I'll mix those in as we go along. With that, Brian, you've got an interesting story. You've got some great content to share with us, so why don't I throw it over.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me, everybody. Yeah, that 14 question, that was a little nerve-wracking. Like, oh, what am I gonna say now? Because most of the time I don't even know. Well, yeah, I guess it started. I grew up kind of on the computer, and like you said, I'm a security expert. I kind of remained sort of anonymous until about 4 or 5 years ago, and was a Windows engineer, a lot of Office 365 stuff, Microsoft Link, Skype for Business, Exchange, really, super boring stuff. Let's see. Since then, I've gotten the opportunity to work with people like Mark Cuban and John McAfee, and that's part of why the antivirus comment was so prevalent. Because if you go on YouTube, you can find a video of John McAfee showing you how to uninstall McAfee antivirus, which is always funny. That guy's got a pretty good sense of humor. So I left high school in 2000, joined the U.S. Marines, ended up a linguist and an intel and counter intel. I went to Iraq for 2 years. I got back from Iraq and basically been on a computer since I was about 5, 6 years old. I mean, maybe even a little bit earlier. My sister was named Lisa after the Mac Lisa. And then that was kind of a dream come true. I got to send a copy of my book to Steve and Janet Wozniak. And the guy sent me his home address, and that was kind of a cool moment. It was like, oh my God, like if there's anybody I'm ever going to geek out to, it's not going to be a celebrity. It's going to be like Steve, or like Elon Musk. Yeah, and so now I'm teaching ethical hacking, speaking fairly often, usually traveling a couple times a month to talk at conferences. People seem to want to know what my opinion is on stuff, which is kind of hilarious. And that's me when I think I was like 2 or 3, and that mouse looks just freaking huge. But yeah, I've had a computer since I was a little kid, and instead of talking to girls and developing social skills, I learned how to use a computer, and now I'm 35. So what thrust me onto the sort of like the main stage was in 2014. I was arguing with Google, and the first article that came out was hacker intercepted FBI and Secret Service calls. So what ended up happening was Google said that there wasn't really an issue with their security for Google Maps, and I said that people were able to manipulate a lot of data, specifically to scam consumers. And Google said, well, we're Google and you're just you, so we're not really we're not really going to listen to you, and we're going to ignore you now. And there's no bug bounty for what you found. So instead of sort of moving on, I created a Secret Service location in the same spot as the real one in DC, and I created another one for the FBI in San Francisco. And instead, if you can look at the article, the screenshot shows that there's a 425 number for the Secret Service and the FBI, which is an area code here in Seattle. Those phone numbers actually were like a telemarketing number that you'd see on commercials for like lendingtree.com or whatever. And if you call the number, it records all the conversations for quality assurance purposes, of course. So once I had created those locations, I was able to flag the real locations by calling them spam from several different IP addresses and offline. And calls started coming in from people trying to reach the real Secret Service. And instead of going to me, I just routed it to the real switchboard. And that was federal wiretapping. And after about 40 calls came in, I started to freak out because I just realized I had done this without permission, and this is a very poorly thought out idea. I don't even know how better to explain it. It was the smartest and stupidest thing I've ever done. So fast forward to the next day, I had called a couple friends of mine to let them know what I was going to be doing. People I'd served in the Marines with and who are now FBI agents or local police. And I said, hey, if I end up in a bag in the back of a Crown Vic, please make sure that, at least someone knows. So I walked into the Secret Service office here in Seattle, told everyone, there's 3 agents, and I said, hey, I managed to intercept calls to the Secret Service. And after about 15 minutes, they kind of rolled their eyes and told me they'll follow up on it. And they were just blowing me off. And at that point, I kind of realized, I was like, look, I've been married. I know what eye rolling looks like. I know that you guys are just humoring me and trying to get me to leave. So why don't I just prove it? I'll leave. And they said, okay, fine. So I said, call the DC office of the Secret Service right now, and we'll see if I'm right. The guy pulls out his cell phone, and I was hoping he would use Google Maps to find the Secret Service location, because chances are he wasn't going to have that phone number saved into his phone. And so this is like a social engineering sort of David Blaine street magic kind of attempt. And luckily he used his phone, which was an Android, and used Google Maps, called the number, talked to the guy, and we only heard the agent in the room. So there's 2 other agents and I who weren't on the call. Once they were done, it kind of, this was kind of the moment. Like, I got a notification on my cell phone saying a new call has come into your marketing campaign, Secret Service. And I pushed play on it and pushed it on speaker and played back his conversation in front of all 3 agents. And now we could hear the other guy in the room. And the agent who had made the call, and these guys are very, very good. They're all ex-military, all ex-police, and nothing really phases them. So the first words out of his mouth were, and they took all my stuff against the wall. They read me my Miranda rights. They made me sign a form saying I understood my Miranda rights, and then they escorted me off to the guest suite, which was maybe an 8x8 room with a table and a handcuff bar on the side and these little plastic folding chairs. And I sat there for 4.5 hours and explained how I did this over and over and over and over while they tried to get to the bottom of it. And they ended up calling Google and telling them to shut things down because some idiot kid in Seattle just proved that they could wiretap the federal government. And so I definitely became the first person to ever wiretap the Secret Service and the FBI and not go to jail. I don't think anyone's ever done it. I don't think anyone's ever stupid enough to try. I definitely know that I was the only person to do that from a McDonald's play area, because that's my daughter was playing that previous night, and while we were eating, and I was sitting on my laptop at McDonald's being creepy. But yeah, that's what started all of this. And
now,
so
Brian, I got to jump in because you went to, you said, would you do this again? Knowing what you know now, would you go in and do the same type of thing?
Oh, no. About that before, because this has made my career, but the risk, when I wrote the book, I had a chapter in the book about how I did it, and I got asked, or not asked, the Secret Service and the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Washington had a meeting with me and said, hey, there's a chapter in your book that tells how you did this. You should remove this. And I said, well, you can't tell me, this is freedom of speech. I'm not a constitutional law expert, but you can't tell me to do that. And they said, no, we can't. We would never infringe on your rights, but it would be a good idea because, if someone used that chapter to do what you did, they'll come after you and you'll go to jail for, I don't know how many calls you recorded, 40, you said? And I said, yeah, it was about that. And they said, well, it's 5 years per call, and I'm no math expert.
Oops.
But 200 years doesn't sound really fun to me, and especially in Guantanamo Bay, and I don't look good in orange.
But you didn't.
Washes my skin out.
It washes your skin out. You didn't do this though to for any personal gain. You did this because you knew there was an issue. You were trying to highlight it. The powers to be at Google weren't quite hearing you, and so you thought this was a route to go a protective mindset of a, hey guys, this needs to change mindset?
Right. If I hadn't done it, no one would have believed that it was possible. But this was kind of the only route in terms of solving that issue and getting people kind of on board and getting the powerful sort of people looking at it and going, all right, yeah, okay, this is definitely a problem. I would probably do it again. There might be some things I'd change, but there's so many different wheels and so many different pieces in play. It's just too hard to think about it. When I think about it, it gives me anxiety sometimes still.
So we've heard the story, folks, and we got an idea of what the motivation was for Brian here. As we said earlier, and this is a little tease to some of the things he's going to talk about in just a moment here, but I had said malicious hackers, and he said most of them, right? That was his response on the word association. So you did this. We're going to find out a little more perspective from Brian in a bit here about what hackers really are looking for and the people they're looking to try and get some type of gain out of this. Brian was trying to bring to light an issue that was going on that has not been resolved. So again, if you have questions, comments for him, get those into us as we move forward. And with that, Brian, I'll put it back in your hands.
Sure. Happened. I gave a TED talk in 2015 and kind of found myself working with other pen testers and ethical hackers and sort of people wanting to meet the idiot who wiretapped the Secret Service, and so you get a little bit of attention here and there. And I got to be a part of these stories, which the one on the right, which is actually kind of smaller, but MBIA had $23 billion in accounts that was essentially available through an Oracle server vulnerability that hadn't been patched. So essentially this was Equifax on a larger scale. So if you're familiar with the Equifax breach, they had a lot of public-facing web servers, and one of the operating systems that was running those web servers had a vulnerability that was considered a severity level 10 out of 10, 10 being the highest. And they didn't patch it right away. And people had been notifying them that you have a serious problem and someone's going to steal all this information. And someone even, went to, I think it was Vice, or it was some blog. Well, this happened with a piece of Oracle software that people same level as Apache wasn't responsible for people patching their own stuff. MBIA basically had $23 billion sitting in accounts where you could, my colleague and I figured out that we could go and submit forms which would allow us to become account holders on those accounts and wire money in and out with just sending in a PDF file. And also we found people who were part of the Defense Intelligence Agency. There was 24 or 25 people who were visiting the Port Authority of Maryland because of this same vulnerability. And so ultimately, this one Oracle patch that didn't get applied to thousands of different universities and government organizations exposed 22 million social security numbers. It exposed about 1 million people at the Texas Department of Child Protective Services. I think it was some other acronym, but Child Protective Services is what everyone understands. And you could see what happened to the kid, and you could see the kid's social, where the kid was moved from and where the kid was moved to, and the new home that the kid was being raised in with new foster parents, and their socials and their addresses. And the one that scared people, which made CNN with Jake Tapper, and I encourage you to watch that guy. That guy's an outstanding human being. There was a school district that had K through 12, and all the K through like 5th grade, every kid who was allowed to ride the bus had this card with a picture of this kid and what the kid's like height, weight, where the kid lived, what bus stop to drop him off at, what time the kid needed to be dropped off, who was allowed to pick the kid up. I mean, you had all the bio information about these kids and their pictures, and the only thing that you didn't know about the kid was were they afraid of clowns or did they like panel vans? Like it was the perfect amount of information to, kidnap kids. And this happened at 3 or 4 different school districts across the country because people didn't know what they had. People didn't know that they had to patch their Oracle stuff because once they bought this really expensive software, they didn't hire experts. I don't know any Oracle server experts. I don't. And I've been in IT for a long time. So it just kind of goes to show you, like, some of these companies are selling software that's amazing, but then and people don't know that they have to continue patching and upgrading. It kind of blows my mind. Come on. So this is going to sound boring, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. So if you're familiar with the types of attacks, some of the top attack vectors: web application attacks, application-specific attacks, malware and ransomware, and denial of service. Denial of service isn't common, even though when it does happen, it's fairly big. It took down Netflix last year. There was a journalist named Brian Krebs who runs pretty much the leading cybersecurity blog on earth, Krebs on Security. And he was attacked because he was saying stuff about people that they didn't want, him to report on. Malware and ransomware. That's a lot more common, and most people should know. We got a good question. What is the most common ways hackers get into systems? All right, I'll answer that in a minute. Malware and ransomware can be downloaded via link. You can be stumbling on a web page and download it. They really don't care. So you're either getting it like a passive attack or an active attack. People are either going to stumble into just like whoops, or they're actively trying to get into your specific company because you make something they want, or they know you have money, or they know that you're not actively backing up your stuff. And the way that you can kind of mitigate this is back your stuff up appropriately. And I don't know at what point it became okay to not do the fundamentals, but if you're not backing up your stuff, then you deserve it. Application-specific attacks is like Skype or Microsoft Office. So if there's a vulnerability associated with an Excel file type and someone figures out a way to embed viruses, that's why they suggest you turn off macros. Same thing with Word files. So you'll commonly see, if you have Gmail or something like that and you go into your spam, you'll see all sorts of attempts at phishing. That's basically what they're talking about. Web application attacks is hacking into infrastructure, hacking into Equifax is a perfect example. There was Apache, the operating system that they were using for their web servers, had a problem. They didn't fix it, and they were attacked and breached. So what is the most common ways hackers get into? So if you're a company and you don't have a very good email policy, or you're clicking on links, that could be the most common way for you. It's different for everybody. It's typically a social engineering phishing attempt. Someone's trying to get you to download something you shouldn't have, and that's usually the way that people get in. It's usually harder to try and break in through a firewall. I mean, to be completely honest, it's usually easier to get a user because the users are the weakest link. So yes, I'll revise my statement. The most common way that people get into your company or into your home network is because someone did something they shouldn't have. They made a mistake, and it's human error.
I basically opened the door. Someone knocked and they opened the door. Now, it used to be really easy. I remember several years ago, there were a couple of companies that would put out, hey, here's a phishing email and here's a regular email. And you could look at the phishing email and say, okay, the fonts are different. The color of the logo of the company is different. There's some language issues that are not appropriate now. I would pass who happen to talk about this stuff, I'd pass that, Brian, 9 out of 10 times. I guarantee you send me a phishing email of today's variety, I can't tell the damn difference.
Right, and I could tell you, here's the worst part. let's say out of all the attendees on this webinar, and there's 256 people here attending, which is great. I'm wasting 300 people's time. That's hilarious. No, so there's 300 people, and if I send all of you an email right after this is over, after telling you don't click on links, chances are I could get a majority of you to click on them based on how clever you can make emails and get them to entice people to click, especially C-level people at companies. For example, here's one that we do during penetration tests is we'd send an email from glassdoor.com saying a new report of sexual harassment has been filed against your company. Click here to see the link. And every, like 99% of them right after a class on phishing emails will click on it. And it's just like immediately failed. Now don't push this button. What are you going to do? It is, because people get panicked about that kind of thing, and especially negative publicity. Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, someone said thanks, has to run, we'll follow you on the web, but he said it anonymously, so now I can't call him out. It's like getting up in the middle of a speech and like the guy's like walking in the middle of the aisle, like, oh yeah, that reminded me of another story. I was in DC last week getting ready to speak at a conference. I was watching some cooking show, laying in bed, texting my girlfriend, and I got a call from a buddy in Denver saying he's on the phone with Microsoft licensing support. And Microsoft licensing support had just called him saying, hi, there's hackers inside of your network using your network to send out spam and host child porn. And we're trying to help you. And he got freaked out because he doesn't want to be a part of that. And obviously, so he calls me and I'm immediately skeptical. And I'm like, dude, Microsoft isn't calling people to tell you you've been hacked. They don't run a company that way. And they don't know. And number two, don't you have a Mac? And he's like, yeah, well, some of them are Macs and some of them are PCs. And I'm like, okay, this is fishy. So the guy gets on, or Bangladesh or Pakistan. It sounded like an Indian guy. And I said, so where are you located? And he said, we are located in Redmond, Washington, D.C. James, does anything sound funny to you about that?
Oh, maybe that District of Columbia edition?
Yeah, because Redmond, Washington is a city and a state, and Washington, D.C. is a whole different place. And the fact that he didn't know that, and that's where he was saying he was located. And then I told my buddy, I said, Mike, you just hang up. These guys are scammers. They're trying to get you to download something. And he's like, yeah, they sent me a URL, but it looked really legit. And I'm like, well, yes, that's the point. They're trying to get you to download this piece of remote control software so they can then just brick all of your stuff with ransomware. And these guys are working, for dollars a day. Yeah, so he eventually kept getting the guy on the phone, and he wouldn't listen to me. And finally, he's like, yeah, they say they're from Best Buy Geek Squad. So I eventually hung up. On the same flight to that conference, this woman who was sitting next to me said that they've moved away from email completely and moved on to Slack. Don't ask, don't tell, and TMI. Oh, all right, fair enough. The CEO of this company said that they've moved all their communication to Slack. And anytime there's a money request or transfer of funds, it has to be done over FaceTime or an audio phone call, because 2 to 3 emails go to the CFO every single week asking for a funds transfer. And it looks like it's coming from the CEO. And they've matched her signature, style of speech, like all so people are watching, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, they'll do their research because the payoff is tens of thousands of dollars. Okay, so we've answered that, and we've answered that. Do you recommend a program called 1Password? I personally use LastPass just because it works with my phone and the different browsers and the different operating systems I've used. But I've heard of 1Password, and depending on how you're using it, I would make sure to have everything that has two-factor authentication, so it will not just allow you to log in, it'll send a text message, it'll send a message to an app, kind of the way iCloud operates. So what are the hackers going for? Private data, credit card numbers, social security numbers. A social by itself really isn't that helpful. You need first name, last name, billing address. And so hackers will trade information. But now that there's 100, everyone's information has been compromised at least once. And so it's about your billing address. So one thing you can do is, for example, I don't use my real birth date when I sign up for most of my social media accounts. I'll use a date one day before, one day after, 2 days before, 2 days after, and then I write down everything in OneNote and make sure that the recovery email is all set. And I go through, and it's a pain in the butt sometimes to set up all that stuff, but it's worth it. Hackers will trade all this private information, your billing info, and they'll try to make something that's even more complete. So it has your mother's maiden name, has your social, it has your billing address, and then what's even better is to know where you used to live before. That way, when you get those security questions like, did you live on this address, or where is your mortgage being held at your first home? What was the company that did this? And that's all in your private credit files, which a lot of them got stolen recently too. So let's see what the next thing is. Oh yeah, access to private resources. That's for ransomware that can be accomplished by fake websites. If you don't have a decent pop-up blocker, get one. Pop-up blockers for like Chrome or Firefox, they will save your butt. You can get them for, Chrome will automatically have one for your iPhone, your Android device. And if you're not using one, I don't know how you use the web, really. The ads are just getting really, really intrusive. Information for further attacks, that was kind of like in number one, where people will combine information to try and make their monetization a little bit more effective. So that's where you get the researching into the CEO and her style of speech and what her signature looks like. That kind of stuff is really, really helpful to them. So putting in place some sort of a policy at your company to make sure that you're not wiring money to anybody, and that your bank won't wire based on an email. Your bank has to only wire based on this certain set of criteria, like a phone call or an audio video call or something like that. What is your position on using Facebook? Fairly decent question. I use Facebook. I don't click on links unless I know the person personally. And even then, inside of a virtual machine when I'm at home, that way, if it's something malicious, or if it's a friend that's been hacked, because you don't know sometimes if it's a friend of yours or if they're just sending you some dumb video that the friend sent to them, or that's some stupid chain email, stupid chain letters. It's still happening. It just boggles the mind. Virus protection for home computers. I have a son that plays a lot of video games on his laptop and gets viruses and worms constantly. Does he play Minecraft? Because I think he probably plays Minecraft and he's trying to make modifications. My daughter is 9. She does the same stuff. I would use something that has what's called application whitelisting. Even, Kaspersky has it, whether you trust them or not because they're Russian. Application whitelisting is the only way to really stop viruses at this point. Antivirus only really works if it's seen that type of virus before, and that doesn't work anymore because viruses are now being sent to people or downloaded with a mechanism that encrypts the payload. So it encrypts the actual virus part, and the encryption is different every single time. So imagine I sent you your antivirus functions as the guy going, all right, red box, got it. You open it up and it's like, oh no, spiders, this sucks. All right, now we're never going to open a box of this size, weight, and color. And tomorrow I'll just send you a blue box full of spiders. And the guy's like, is this red? Nope. It's blue. Open it. No, they got me again. You can only defend against something that you've seen before. It's like your antibodies in your body. So you have to get something that does a little bit better of a job. Application whitelisting only allows applications to run if they've been pre-approved. And it's built in with a lot of, Kaspersky, Symantec have it. Look it up. Windows has it, but it's not by default turned on. All right, the next question, we're gonna have to see if we have time, or you can actually ping me later. ISO and IEC 27001 standards in cybersecurity documentation. Can a business risk case be presented? That's gonna be a little bit out of bounds for most people, so I'll answer this offline if you wanna chat about it. And that's my email, and you can email. Recently experienced 2 hacking situations. Always seems to be on the weekend at very early times in the morning. Still trying to recover. Fortunate we didn't get any money taken, but the work involved to make sure we were locked down is exhausting. If you want to follow up on that and share, I'd be happy to, give you my insight on that. What info can hackers get if they tap my webcam? I don't know. It's usually nothing. It's usually just a personal privacy invasion kind of thing. I personally have no problem. I don't use the little stickers that they sell. It's like, hide your webcam. And I'm like, no, I'll just intentionally walk around naked because
that'll scare them on Halloween.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with my pastiness, and ultimately it's like, what are they gonna see? It's like, this hacker didn't make his bed, and that's it. Like, that's all they're gonna see. No, yeah, it wouldn't be worth the time at all. In our medical practice, the software we have requires, all right, it requires Internet Explorer with ActiveX, or go to Chrome, but remove pop-ups maybe. I would move to Chrome, and you can set a certain domain, so you can set a certain website to not, to allow compromise you on other sites, but you can definitely say, this domain has pop-ups come up and they're okay, but by default what you want is an antivirus or a security piece, a piece of software to by default not allow any of that stuff, and then you get to go in and then say this is okay for this website. All right, we answered that. These are some good questions. Keep asking them. Say you decide to accept a position next year as a CISO, the first 3 things you do on day 1. I want to know, the first thing is I want a good inventory of every device and all of the software that we're using, or we've got to hire a vendor or perform some sort of audit and inventory of everything there. I want to know what type of company it is and what regulations we're bound to. So are we SEC regulated? Are we ISO compliant? What are the different compliance laws that we fall under? PCI, whatever it is. A CISO position for Japan for a Fortune 50. And I'm not going to be taking it because family reasons and kids and stuff like that. But I started thinking about that question because, yeah, holy crap, it's suddenly it's on your shoulders. The Equifax, I don't know how good the Equifax CISO was, but I know that she was a music major. So having a game plan is a really solid idea. How many people in here are up at that level? You can put it in chat or whatever. Chrome is my preferred web browser, yes. All right. How about so-called next generation endpoint protection products? A lot of them are really cool. I got to spend a little bit of time working with a new one called Psychotic, which sounds like psychotic with a lisp. They have behavioral analytics and AI governing endpoint protection. So it detects weird behavior. It detects when you're trying to download stuff out of corporate resources. A lot of different stuff. tax. That's your, okay. All right. How do you prevent a disgruntled employee from attacking from within or after discharge? A lot of times people, it's all about segmentation, and you might hear about this. Actually, I've got a slide about this. So hackers want money. How many people were shocked? I wasn't shocked. Solutions. So this is the sort of the basics, but hire an expert. Because you're not going to, if you're running your entire company based on what you saw in one webinar and a few little bullet points, then ouch. 2 is training your employees, because they are the weakest link. Training them on what to expect, yada, yada, yada. Inventory, updates, and patching. Inventory all of your stuff. That way you know what to update and what to patch. If you knew you had an Oracle server, you would know you'd need to patch it, and you know what to pay attention to, and you can go and watch you could have a team of people. Most Fortune 1000 companies have a change control and patching team. People are dedicated to patching these types of servers because they know we have 1,000 Windows servers and 2,000, and this is the schedule, and that's how Microsoft doesn't get breached. That's how Amazon doesn't get breached. How many people have noticed that some of these really large companies who take this seriously do a really, really good job? Backups. If you run daily, incremental, and full backups every week, ransomware is just annoying, but it doesn't cripple your entire company. So back to the disgruntled employee question. Number 5 here is network segmentation. If you have rights management and some sort of role-based access control, if Shirley decides that she got sexually harassed and she wants to go and destroy the company from within, she won't have access to more than she should. Everyone should have just enough access to the stuff that they're supposed to have access to, and it should be backed up. It should be on a network drive or some sort of, however your infrastructure is set up. That way, if she decides that she's going to be disgruntled, or even worse, her machine gets infected by a hacker, it looks the same from a behavior standpoint. So all of a sudden, what do they have access to? You have to treat every employee like they're going to be disgruntled at some point. How about opening chamber that will contain a virus if there is one, like the Chamber of Secrets? Is this a Harry Potter question? If you open a virus and you've got application whitelisting and you've got a really strict policy, it won't matter if someone sends you a virus and you click on it. That's essentially the way it is. Do you remember disabling anything older than TLS 1.2? Yes, if you understand that question, yes. I don't have any input on Sophos antivirus. I've heard of it, but do your research, and if you're brave enough, yeah, get some reviews and see what other peers think. Or Bill Clinton. Some of you guys are pretty funny. I like it. A lot of other endpoint protection products have application whitelisting. They have network health, so they'll make sure that you've updated your stuff. So for example, if you work at Microsoft and you want to connect to the VPN and you're working from home, it will not allow you to connect until you've updated your software to a certain level, because a new patch is important. And these employees are not compliant. They could be infected. It's a way of quarantining and making sure that people aren't infected, and then can then infect the vast majority of people at work. What's your take on hiding IP address with something like Hide My Ass or another outfit? Definitely using a VPN product when you're surfing the web on, let's say, a Starbucks or free Wi-Fi. If you don't control the wireless access point, you might as well assume that network is compromised. So use a VPN. It's a way of encrypting all your traffic so people can't see credit card numbers and other data. If you're at Starbucks and I'm at Starbucks and I'm feeling like I could actually, I don't know, within a few minutes have access to your machine if you don't have a firewall turned on or VPN. If I want to view your stuff in transit, I can. So yeah, use a VPN. They're $5 to $10 a month. What are your thoughts on running phishing tests to your employees? Absolutely do it. That follows under the testing and the training. Do it. People regularly pay companies like mine to go and do physical stuff where we'll pretend to be a UPS employee and see if we can get access to the building, see if we can get around their security protocols. It's a lot of fun. It really is. But I would absolutely do it and hire an expert, or at least do some research, because it can be a lot of fun and you can learn quite a bit, and then you can that's where you can improve. WordFence plugin for WordPress. I have no idea what WordFence is, but I would imagine, yeah, I would trust if you have questions about stuff like WordPress or whatever else, if it's a company that makes a lot of products, they're probably better off than the smaller companies, because it does take a lot of money to pen test and do application security reviews and code reviews. So the bigger companies are generally better off. ESET is good at application whitelisting. Yes, 100%.
Brian, did you see Jerry's question here about iOS devices? There always used to be this argument, use iOS because it's so much safer than Windows. Thoughts on that? He's saying it's safer to run those on public Wi-Fi without VPN than laptops?
No, I won't connect on public Wi-Fi either on my iOS device, because the traffic goes, and a lot of times it'll get sent on plain text by accident. You're surfing in browser history. I mean, it's no different from a technology standpoint to intercept data or get access to it on public Wi-Fi. It is an order of magnitude harder to intercept or break into your device when it's on an LTE network than it is on public Wi-Fi. AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, they all do a pretty good job of security. So yeah, I would use your device. How much does data cost now? Anyways, how much money are you saving by connecting to public Wi-Fi? Unless your reception is so terrible, I would definitely consider having a VPN on your phone, and you can Google how to set that up. It's not that hard. I mean, it's in English or whatever language you prefer. VPN products, look up the top 10 VPNs of 2018 or 2017, and they'll give you a list, and then you can pick based on pricing and speed. There's usually a CNET article about it, or some article that's reviewed the top 10, and they'll give you a link directly to them. I don't usually recommend VPNs, because the last time people are like, well, it doesn't work in my state or it doesn't work in my country, and I don't need that kind of aggravation. I care about you, but not that much.
Not that much. Hey, Brian is in the audience. He wanted to do another word association with you. You ready for it?
Oh, crap. Fine.
This is actually something you and I talked about yesterday. I told you I was going to bring it up, but Brian's bringing it up, so I'm going to have him bring it up. You ready?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to want you to give the answer, but then give a detailed answer.
All right.
Good? Cybersecurity insurance.
Oh, scam.
Why a scam?
Detailed answer. Cybersecurity insurance. Insurance companies don't exist to make your life better. They exist to screw as many people as possible in a large enough pool, and then hope that enough people don't actually follow up with their insurance policies and whatever else. And the burden of proof, like how much do you have to prove to them that you were hacked? And then, so for an organization like, let's say, a university, and they get breached and then it makes the news, cybersecurity insurance is great for them, but for a small business, you won't even know you got hacked. So how are you going to convince us in insurance? And then whatever happened, like, how much stuff do you really have? How many customers do you, if you run a cupcake shop or you're a small accountant, it's almost not worth it, because they're there to exist to pay off all of these fines from having some sort of a data breach. How many customers do you really have? And how many people are really going to notice? It took the Office of Personnel Management over a year to discover the hack. And that hack was discovered when some vendor was running a piece of software as a demo. And that's when they found it, like accidentally. You're never going to discover that. You aren't going to discover you got hacked, and you don't have the budget to pay for a forensics team to come in and actually figure all of it out, where it came from, what was actually accessed, because you just don't have the infrastructure, the resources, or the money to pay for that kind of thing. And that's what they're going to require at most of these insurance policies. So you're paying for something you can't afford to use once the cybersecurity insurance has to be actually called up. So if you're a small business under 25 or 50 people, really look at the policy, because they're not selling you a policy that's in the best interest of you. Insurance exists for them. It's in their best interest.
I've been out working with, we talked cybersecurity, and this report or something came out in June. I think it was one of the sharks from Shark Tank. He and someone else. That's at least where the info came from. I'll try and Google it and find it. But the bottom line: 3.5 million unfulfilled cybersecurity jobs in by 2020. Right. So we're only 2-3 years away from that. One, I guess, do you buy that? Have you seen that report? Should that scare us? Are things going to get a whole lot worse, or do you think we're going to catch on up? Are we going to be much safer in 2 years?
It's definitely getting worse, and companies are now starting to figure out how to build products. I got to work with John McAfee. I was appointed to his board, and now I'm doing a product testing of a pretty cutting-edge counter-hacking device called the Sentinel. I'm not paid to promote it. God, I wish I was. It would be. They're just in product launch, but I'm going to be doing a review of it and putting it up on Twitter, and so it'll notify you when hackers are inside of your network, that kind of thing. Companies are starting to invent these kind of devices. All right, this looks like a hacker, because how do you distinguish hacker versus regular person? But we're going to still see companies screwing the pooch for a long time before the government or someone will step in, because I don't think the market's going to correct this. The government will have to say, okay, look, these are the more stringent guidelines that you need to follow. Otherwise, you shouldn't be operating. And companies that have are going to be like licensed and bonded, like contractors. If a contractor shows up at your house and they're not licensed and bonded, they're operating illegally. And Equifax, did they have a bond? Did they have to put up insurance money? Did they have to, say that, we're going to be operating in a safe and effective manner that's not going to get your information just sold to the highest bidder or the lowest bidder? No, they didn't. So people who operate those kinds of large companies who have that kind of risk associated with the stuff that they keep are going to be hammered on for a while. And I think the landscape's going to change. But yeah, there's a lot of people who there's a lot of shortages in cybersecurity people. So if you're looking for a really good job that's not going anywhere, and you don't like people, and you like Hot Pockets and Mountain Dew and dark basements, then this is your job.
That's the spot for you. I was going to say, I mean, hearing you say government step in, yeah, maybe I can agree with you that would happen. I can also a reporter for many years before moving to the world of tech. That will take forever. So it'll have no teeth to start. And then once the teeth start coming in, they won't be strong enough. And then, I mean, we're 15 years down the line before anything maybe reasonable is there. And then the bad guys are still 10 years ahead of us at that point. On that note, you have 2 more slides in your deck. The next one is a big thank you. So if you want to share that, you can. The last one is up to you. I know you had a phone number and email address. If you truly want to share that, I'll invite you to share that, Brian. Look at that. He's a sharing type of guy. 425, that's a Seattle number. Does that go to a Google Maps like number? Are you going to record me? What's going on with that?
That's my Google Voice number. So it'll take a message. You can text it. You can email it. If you have questions that you want answered, send me an email. If you want to talk about working together, or you want to hire me, you can call or text or email or whatever. I encourage you to go on LinkedIn and send me an invite. I answer questions there all the time. Otherwise, I'm at home changing diapers and taking kids to whatever class that they're in at the time.
the SealySecurity.com. That's still active.
That's not active at the moment. It's rebranded and changed around. So just find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or
the contact info on the screen right now. Cool. Also, again, audience grew a bit since we started. If you missed at the beginning, someone was asking earlier, the author, Cyber Fraud, The Web of Lies. That's the book that...
you can type my name into Amazon. It'll be probably one of the first results.
Yeah, absolutely. That came out 2016, so I encourage you guys to all pick that up. We have recorded today's entire presentation, so thanks to the ShareFile team for organizing this, recording this, so it'll be available as an archive, so everyone can come on back and listen in. You can also share this with folks that you think might benefit from hearing what Brian had to say. Good times on this event. Folks, do appreciate you all being here. A couple other questions have been coming in the queue. I know Jana and team behind the scenes will wrap those up and report. We'll probably send those over via email to Brian. He'll try and get some responses out to you for those things that still came into the queue. But with that, 30 seconds, final thought, Brian, on something to be a little more secure than we were yesterday.
If you haven't gone and frozen your credit reports and your credit files, go and do that. If you had identity theft stuff, go and report it to the police, report it to the FTC. And if everyone starts doing that and loading the FTC with complaints, the more people who start complaining, the better. And it'll start to change the system. If no one complains, then they don't know that there's a problem.
All right. Hey, good stuff. Final word there. Thank you, Brian, for joining us. Thanks again to the ShareFile team. Biggest thanks goes out to all of you for attending, making this really fun event to work on. With that, we'll wrap it up. Again, my name's James Hilliard, and we do look forward to talking to you all down the road.